look this way. Obviously, today, gonna be really important because of the mic and everything that y'all are quiet. If y'all will make sure, y'all always are though. If y'all make sure you're facing this way, so your whole body's facing this way. So I'm waiting for a couple people to be totally turned around. Okay, and make sure phones are up. And we're gonna get started. You ready? Okay. All right, so this is mini apple pies. We're gonna make, it's gonna be a mini apple pie cup with a strudel topping and homemade whipped cream that you guys will be making in lab this week. What have I done to get ready for lab?
Wash your hands, put on gloves, hide your hair back, put on an apron.
Perfect. Okay, so I have no jewelry on, I have my gloves on, mask, apron, I wash my hands, and I have on closed-toed shoes, and I'm ready to go. I also cleaned my prep area, and I have gathered all my ingredients and all of my equipment. We're gonna start, there's 3 parts to the mini apple pie. The first part is the actual apple pie base. The second part is the strudel, and then we have the homemade whipped cream going on top. We have to get these in the oven within 20 minutes into the class period. So you do want to come in and get started right away because it's going to be pretty tight on time. So before you guys came in, I went ahead and unrolled one of our pie crusts. We're using just a pre-made pie crust as our base to save time. So we're just using one of these. I have already cut a few and put them into our cupcake pans. They're going to be individual size servings, so mini apple pies. Before we put the crust into the pan, what do we need to do? Spray. Yeah, so we're just going to spray, and we should make 12. Then you're going to use half a cup measure. We're going to use this as our molding. These need to be about 3 inches in a circular shape, and so that's what this is. So I'm just going to take my dry measuring cup, and I'm going to press it into the dough. And I'm trying to get 5 here, and we may have to reshape a few. So we're just going to use that to cut out, and we're going to press it in. You want to make sure that you have, drop it in. You want to make sure that you have a little bit on the edge, so a little bit remaining, so that when these come out, they will be truly little mini apple pies. Okay, so for this one, I kind of ran out of room, so I'm just going to add a little bit to it to make it big enough. And press it in. Kind of fix that on the side. Okay, for the last one, what do y'all think I need to do? Yeah, you're just going to reshape the dough, and you're probably going to have to do this. I did this with the other half as well, so you'll probably have to do this twice. Pushing it out about the same thickness, so just kind of keep an eye on that. And you should have just enough dough for all 12. So we'll pull off the extras, and then we'll push this down into the cupcake pan. So this is your mini apple pie base. All right, now we're going to work on the filling. Okay, so I'm going to put this out of the way, and we're going to pull out the cutting board. Now, I'm pretending to be working in lab 3, so what color cutting board am I using? Green. What color knife am I using? Sorry. Green, okay. This is a fruit, so what color cutting board am I using? Green, good. If it was a protein food, what color cutting board would I be using? Red. No protein in this, so you're just using the green. So we're using apple. I washed it before we got started, and we're going to be using 2 apples. I have already done 1, okay, but I wanted to walk through the steps. This is the new part of the recipe. So we have never done this in here. We're going to peel, core, and cut the apple into small cubes. All right, so peel. There's 2 ways we can peel this. What's one? With a peeler. All right, yeah, we could use a peeler like I'm doing. What is the other way that we could peel this? What kind of knife? Yeah, we could use the paring knife. However, I would like you guys to use the peeler for this lab. Sometimes, like if we're cutting jalapenos, we'll use the paring knife. But for this lab, we're going to use the peeler. So you're just going to peel I'm being very careful because these peelers are pretty sharp. All the skin off the apple. Now, you don't have to get all of this top skin off. Just kind of go in a circle so that you get most of it off, because we're going to be cutting around that anyways. And then I'm just going to check and make sure that I've got all the green off. And I'm going to kind of clear my cutting board because we're going to be using this space. Okay, so then I'm going to be cutting around the core. It's going to create kind of like a half moon shape. So remember, the apple has a core going through the center. So we don't want to cut through the center. And then we're going to put these face side down on the cutting board. So I'm just going to cut through on each side. Okay, we're not going to use the core, so you can get rid of this. Then you're going to take these and place them face cut side down. And we're just going to go through and cut them into slices. Okay, so cutting board rules. While we're using the cutting board, what needs to be underneath it? A wet paper towel. And what does that do? Yeah, it keeps it from not sliding around. Also, you want to always cut which way from your body? Yes, away from your body. Okay, so I'm just taking the slices that I cut and just turning them and chopping them into smaller pieces. Now, these are going into your apple pie, so you guys do not want these to be huge chunks. So you do want the pieces to be pretty small. All right, we're doing the last little section here. All right, and we've got pretty small apple pieces. Now, you'll notice my old apples I cut during before school. What color have they turned a little bit?
Brown.
Yeah, brown. You guys are going to be cutting yours fresh and using them right away. We're also going to be using a lemon juice in this mixture to help prevent that. So you guys won't have that issue with yours. Okay, so I'm going to move the cutting board out of the way. Does the knife go back into your bucket? No, where does it go? After it gets washed. It goes in the knife bucket in kitchen 5. So make sure we're doing that. All right, so we're going to mix together the rest of the filling. So this is what is going to be going into the mini apple pies. We have 3 tablespoons of sugar. So we're just going to mix that into the apples. We have a teaspoon of lemon juice. Again, just going to help with making sure that the apples don't turn brown. We have a 3/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. You guys don't have a 3/4 measuring spoon, so how can you do that? You can do 1/4 3 times, or
1/2 and then
1/2 and 1/4. Good. And then this is 3 tablespoons of flour. Sorry, this is 1 tablespoon of flour. All right, and we're just going to mix this all together. And this is our filling. And we're going to make sure this gets really good and mixed together. And then we're just going to take a spoon and put it into your pie crust. We're going to evenly distribute this. So we're going to go around and just do 1 scoop first, and then see if we have any extras to add to the pie crust. Okay. There's a little piece of my apple that didn't get cut up really good. I'm not going to use it. Why do you think you wouldn't want a chunk that big into your... Yeah, it may not cook evenly, and when you go to take a bite, it's just going to be kind of not a good texture. Okay, so we're just kind of adding, evenly distributing. And our mini apple pies are ready for the strudel topping. Okay, so I'm going to put that to the side. Put my bowl to the side. And now we're going to work on the strudel topping. So all of this has to be done within the first 20 minutes of class. So it's a lot to do Do not start on your whipped cream until these are in the oven. All right, so we're gonna take a half a stick of butter, softened. So this butter has been sitting out since the beginning of the day so that it's soft enough to do this technique. I'm gonna put your butter out for you so it'll be nice and soft like this. My earlier class periods are going to have to put it in the microwave, or if you make it at home, maybe 10 seconds. We don't want to melt it. We just want to get it nice and softened. And we're going to do a technique called cutting in with the butter. So basically, we're going to be using something to cut the butter into dry ingredients. So we're going to combine our butter, 1 cup of flour, 1/4 cup of brown sugar. How did I measure the brown sugar? I packed it in and then I did what? Scraped it with the back of a knife. Good job. And then this is a teaspoon of, half a teaspoon of cinnamon. All right, so does anyone know what you do at this point to cut in the butter?
Mash it with
Yeah, so I'm gonna take the fork, and it does take some time and effort, and I'm going to mash it into these dry ingredients. Okay, so the butter has got to be pretty soft to do this. So if you are using the microwave, you just want to make sure you don't melt it though, because we do not want this melted. And we're just going to work this dry ingredient, it's called cutting it in, into our butter. And it does take some time sometimes. What's another tool we could use for this? Anyone know? Got to have something that can cut it in. So we could use a pastry blender. We learned about those at the beginning of the year. It kind of looks like, y'all would call it a potato masher, but it's not a potato masher. It's actually for this purpose right here. If you were going to do a large amount. What else? What electric mixer could help? Yeah, the KitchenAid. However, because of time on this lab, I did not want y'all to have to pull out a processor or use the KitchenAid mixer again when you could just use a fork. So we'll just make sure that it's nice and soft so we can use a fork. Now, a lot of times, it's a strudel topping, so it's not going to be perfectly smooth. It's going to be kind of chunky when we add it on, and it's going to bake into our crust, or into our topping. So I'm just going to make sure we get all this broken up, the butter broken up. And has anyone noticed an allergen in this lab yet? What do we got? All right, yes, we definitely have wheat. Okay, so there is an allergen. It is wheat. We do have fruit in this lab, but it's not an allergen. Is there another allergen in this? Yeah. Yes, our dairy, milk, from the heavy cream and the whipping cream. Okay. All right, so this is good to go. So you see it just takes some time. Then we're going to take a spoon. So I'm going to use that same spoon that I used. And we're just going to take it and push it on top. So this is going to be our topping. Now it will not be super smooth. It's got cut up butter. No, it's not going to be super smooth, but it is going to be, it's going to cook on like a strudel topping. Does anyone know any other recipes where you cut in butter? Anyone made any kind of like pastry? Chicken pot pie dough, pastry batters. Okay. You may not use all of this. See, we'll have a little bit left over, and that's fine. I'm going to go back and just add some topping in a couple places. And then we get this in the oven. You need to be done with all of these steps to this point at about 20 minutes into the class period. So when you get, what does that mean for when you get to class? Yeah, you need to get started as soon as possible. So this is what they should look like going into the oven. All right, any questions on the mini apple pie portion? Okay, so this will cook in the oven for about 18 to 20 minutes. The pie crust will crisp up, the apple pie filling will get nice and soft and bubbly, and the topping will cook and kind of brown up on top. All right, so I'm gonna put this to the side, and I'm gonna move this in a little bit so that y'all can see the whipped cream. All right, so for the whipped cream, and we're gonna go quickly through this because you guys have made whipped cream already before in class. Which attachment will I use for the whipped cream?
The whisk.
All right, yes, I'm gonna use the wire whisk. When might we use the dough hook? Like cookie dough, maybe, or pizza dough, even better example. And then when do we use the paddle? Batters, I like the paddle for cookie dough. Okay, so we're putting in our heavy whipping cream. Now, this has been out for just a moment because of our demo today. But ideally, you want to, should I get the rest of that out there? Ideally, you want to take the heavy whipping cream and use it straight from the fridge. So this is only heavy whipping cream in here right now, and I'm going to turn it up, and I'm going to let this whip up. So what is the first stage that we'll come to? Yeah, so it'll be foamy. So we're going to stop at foamy and check it out. All right, so our first stage is foamy, and we are here. It's nice and foamy. What's our next stage that we're going to be looking for? All right, we're looking for a soft peak. I'm at like 6 right now on the KitchenAid mixer. I might go to a 7. Okay, so we may be there, so we're going to look at it. Yes, okay, so you see that we're at a soft peak. What defines a soft peak? Yeah, it's, the peak comes up and then flops over. All right, so now what are we looking for next? Stiff peak. Once it gets to a stiff peak, then we can add in our vanilla and our confectioner sugar. Does anyone know, let's see if we're here yet, does anyone know what happens, and we are, so we know that, and I'm going to take this out and show you on here, we know that we are ready to add our vanilla and our sugar because our peak is a stiff peak. What happens if we were to miss this step and keep processing it, what would it turn into?
Too hard.
Anybody? It's an ingredient that we actually used today. Butter. Yeah, it would turn into butter. Okay. So we're just going to mix this back to a stiff peak. And you have a whipped cream to go on top of the ends. All right, so after you get here, whipped cream's made, pie's in the oven, what do you need to do in your kitchen? Clean. Please make sure you're checking out the back of your recipe. On the back, not this copy, but on y'all's copies, there's a list. Please make sure you go through the list and make sure you've done every single thing in the kitchen for cleanup before you ask to be checked out. Any questions on the recipe? Okay, y'all have got plenty of time today to get equipment lists, work plans submitted to Lab 6 Performance in Canvas. All right, so move to your lab groups.